John Lusk here of Lusk Archery Adventures. Serious testing, successful hunting. Today I'm going to be doing a test of the Day 6 Evo and the Evo X. Now, you may have noticed that I had a test up for a while of both of these heads. However, after posting it, some of the viewers noted that the head that I was testing was actually kind of a first run of their broadheads that was done a few years ago. And there was just one batch of those that were sent out in those initial few months. But since that time, a couple of years ago, they made some updates to the head to make them thicker and make them more durable. So viewers sent me in some of those heads to test with the updated model that was done a couple of years ago. And so to be fair, I thought, okay, well, I'll take that video down and I'll test it with the heads that are being sold now and have been sold for the last couple of years. So that's why the video today. And for this test, I'm going to be doing all the tests that I do for 2021 using my Bowtech SR6, and I'm using Bishop FOC King Arrows for most of the shots, but then I use the Bishop FAD Eliminator for the really hard impact shots. And for a detailed description of all the different tests that I do and why I do those tests, please read about it in the description box below this video. But let's zoom on in here and check out the Evo and the Evo X. Here's a good look at the 125 grain Evo. And first let's go through some of the dimensions. The cutting diameter of the main blade is 1 1/16 inches, and of the bleeder in this model is a half an inch. Now you can also get these bleeders to be 3/4 of an inch, but that would add an extra 5 grains to the overall weight. And the thickness of the blades is 0.060 inches thick. That's the main blade, as well as the bleeders, interestingly enough, are just as thick as are the main blades. Now, some of the design things that you notice is, first of all, it's not vented, which makes them a lot more quiet in flight and also a bit more durable, as well as you notice this gentle convex curve to it. That curve right there, that's to aid in penetration, as well as to increase the durability just a bit. Now you also notice that the blades are sharpened on the back for the bleeders as well as for the main blade, and those are at a straight angle. The ones that are curved are only this main blade. And sometimes that presents a challenge in resharpening, but you can use the Stay Sharp Guide C model, which is designed for concave or convex heads. Any kind of a curved broadhead, you can use that, and then it makes it just as easy as the straight edges to resharpen there. Now, as for the materials, the blades are CPM S30V steel, which is a really fine steel that's used in a lot of fine cutlery and knife applications. Some of the advantages of it are, first of all, its Rockwell hardness. The way this is hardened, it's brought to a Rockwell of 59 to 60, which means it's going to have a really nice edge to it. It also has a greater impact resistance than most stainless steels. Okay, the typical 420 or 440, it's much more resistant to impact than those. Now, it's not as resistant to impact as a tool steel, like an A2 or S7 or something like that. Those are much more resistant to impact. However, another advantage of this is its corrosion resistance. It's not going to rust. And whereas those other high carbon steels, those tool steels, can have a tendency to rust at times, which can take away some of the sharpness of the blades. Another advantage of the CPM S30V is that it's made right here in the USA. The steel comes from the USA, as well as all the construction of this broadhead is from the USA, so that's kind of nice. So I'm really eager to put this head to the test, but I'm not only going to be testing this head, I'm also going to be testing this one. Okay, and this is the big brother of the Evo. This is the Evo X, and this is the 150 grain model. So everything is the same with this one in terms of the steel and the thickness, all the same. However, the cutting diameter of this is 1 1/4 inches as opposed to 1 1/16 inches, and the bleeder is still the half-inch bleeder. But again, this weighs 150 grains. So I'm really eager to put both of these heads to the test and see how the Evo and the Evo X perform. 150. The Evo penetrated 8 1/4 inches, and the Evo X penetrated 7 1/4 inches. $200. The Evo penetrated through 66 layers, and the Evo X penetrated through 57 layers. Here's the Evo after 5 shots to the steel plate, and as you can see, it did very well. The bleeders are perfectly intact, the main blade's perfectly intact, spins very well. The only damage is that there's a little bit of edge chatter on each of the main blades. There's really no edge chatter on the bleeders at all, but there is a bit on the main blades. Here's the Evo X after 5 shots to the steel plate, and it did very well also. And it spins perfectly true, the bleeders are perfectly intact, blades are all intact. Again, just like the Evo, there's just a little bit of edge chatter that you can see along the main blades. A little bit more on this as opposed to the Evo, probably because of the width, as well as, it's 150 grains, you get a slightly more momentum on impact, but still held up very well. Here's a good look at the wound channel of each of these heads, and you can see the Evo on the bottom right there and the holes that it made, and then the Evo X in the upper left and the slightly larger holes that it made. Here's the Evo after impacting the concrete, and man, it stuck really deeply in that concrete. It took a while to get it out. That was one of the deepest penetrating heads I've had in the concrete, and you can see for the most part the blades held together very well. The bleeders are perfectly intact. There's just this little bit of a chunk that was taken out of the end of the Evo, but other than that, it did very well, spins true. Here's the Evo X after impacting the concrete, and it did very well. The blades held together perfectly. There's really very little edge chatter, a little bit, but not a lot. However, there is a bit of a bend that you can see there in the blades. Now, it still spins well, fairly well, but there's that bend in the blades. There you can see the main blade bent up and bent down, but again, that's very minor and really pretty impressive durability overall. So what did you think of the Evo and the Evo X? I don't know if you know it or not, but day 6 comes from Genesis 1:31. Okay, as a pastor, I know that, where God looked back on after the 6th day and saw that everything he created was good. Okay, so that's how they came up with the name, that what they're creating is good. And I don't know if I would have said that necessarily about that first iteration of the Evo and the Evo X, but this improvement that they've made for the last couple years, and it really made a difference. And I would say, yes, it was made, and it was made very good. So that 0.060 inches of thickness made a significant difference in the durability. So if you're looking for a really stout, deeply penetrating, tough broadhead with a lot of different variations in cut size as well as weight, you got to check out the Day 6 Evo and the Evo X. Great job, Day 6.